My name is Detective Pierce. I have walked through blood-soaked alleys, tunnels carved by desperate hands, forests that whisper with voices not their own. I have faced things that wear human faces, and things that wear none. But rarely do I enter a case already certain that what waits for me is not simply crime, but something else. Something older. It was supposed to be routine. A call from the precinct, asking me to investigate a disturbance at a plumbing and hardware store on the edge of town. The store had been closed for the night, its metal shutters pulled down, but the neighbors reported noises, metal clanging, pipes hissing, voices muffled by walls. They assumed burglars. I assumed burglars. But burglars do not leave the air tasting like iron before you even open the door. The place was called Stone and Copper Supply. An old building, brick walls stained by decades of water leaks and rust. I had been inside once or twice before, years ago, buying odds and ends for cases that required makeshift tools. Even then, the place had felt strange. Rows of pipes stacked like bones, tanks of water heaters standing like sentinels, aisles where the air was colder than it should have been. That night, the front door was already ajar. No sign of forced entry. The street outside was dead silent, though I knew people lived in the apartments above. Curtains twitched as I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Dampness, mildew, but beneath that, copper. The raw sting of blood, faint but present. The aisles stretched into shadows. My flashlight beam bounced across sinks wrapped in plastic, towers of ceramic toilets, racks of wrenches and drills. A faint drip echoed, though no water should have been running. Somewhere deeper in the building, a pipe groaned, long, low, like a throat straining. "Hello?" I called out, not expecting an answer. There was one anyway. It came from the plumbing section. A whisper, not words, but shaped like them. The sound of air moving through pipes, hollow and mournful. Then footsteps. Slow. Wet. I moved closer, each step echoing too loudly in the cavernous space. My flashlight caught movement between the aisles, something pale, something bent. It slipped away before I could catch it in the beam. At the far end of the store, a hatch to the basement was open, a staircase leading down into dark. The sound of dripping grew louder there, the air colder. And on the floor, smeared across the tiles, I found marks, dragging, streaks of something wet. Not paint. Not rust. Blood. I crouched to inspect it, and that was when the store answered me again. The pipes above groaned all at once, every line and joint rattling, metal trembling as though something alive moved inside. Then, from the shadows of the basement hatch, I heard it clearly. A voice, whispering through metal. "Pierce." My name. Drawn out, stretched like water echoing in an empty cistern. Whoever or whatever waited below knew me. And it wanted me to follow. The hatch yawned open like a wound, the iron stairs descending into a throat of blackness. The air was thick, wet, metallic, choking with mildew and the unmistakable sweetness of old blood. My flashlight beam cut down the steps, catching glimmers of water pooled at the bottom. The whisper had stopped, but the silence below was not empty. It felt occupied. I drew my revolver. The weapon's weight was small comfort compared to the pressure of what waited beneath. Slowly, I began my descent, each step groaning underfoot. The deeper I went, the louder the pipes rattled, above, beside me, inside the very walls. It sounded like they were alive. The basement floor was flooded in 2 inches of water. It rippled with each drop that fell from the corroded pipes overhead. My beam revealed shelves stacked with boxes, crates of fittings, coils of tubing. But everything was wrong, each box warped with water damage, labels smeared into illegibility, The shelves themselves warped like they had been here far longer than they should have been. Something brushed against my leg. I froze. The water was disturbed, though nothing was near me. Then, faintly, shapes began to appear beneath the surface. Not shadows. Not reflections. Faces. Human faces, distorted, pressed against the underside of the water as though a thin sheet of glass separated me from them. Their eyes were wide, mouths open in silent screams, bubbles slipping past their lips as if drowning eternally. I staggered back, my breath catching in my throat. The faces followed my movement, dragging along the surface of the water without breaking it, their stares unblinking. "Pierce!" The pipes moaned again. This time it wasn't just one voice. It was many. A chorus, broken and muffled, but all carrying my name. I forced myself forward, searching for the source. At the far wall, a pipe much larger than the others jutted out, thick as a man's torso, its surface slick with condensation. From its mouth, water dripped steadily into the flooded floor. But the pipe wasn't just dripping. It was breathing, expanding and contracting like a lung, groaning with each inhale. Then, without warning, the pipe vomited. A gush of water burst forth, and with it something pale and heavy tumbled out, splashing into the flood. It was a human arm. Skin bloated, veins black, the hand twisted into a claw as if frozen mid-scream. I raised my gun, but what followed wasn't something a bullet could solve. The water churned violently, faces beneath it convulsing as though trying to climb free. Pipes along the walls split and bulged, shapes pressing from inside, shoulders, skulls, bodies jammed within the metal, writhing like worms in their coffins. And through it all, the chorus of voices grew louder, filling the basement like a prayer recited in madness. "You belong to us!" I gritted my teeth, forcing down the panic rising in my chest. Something was binding those faces, those voices, to the pipes, to the very water. Something feeding on them, trapping them. If I didn't end it here, I wasn't certain I'd make it out alive. The beam of my flashlight landed on a panel near the central pipe, a control valve, corroded but intact. My instinct screamed that this was it. A heart, a core, whatever power held this nightmare in place was tied to that valve. But moving toward it meant wading deeper into the water, where the faces pressed hungrily against the surface, waiting. I holstered my gun, gripping the flashlight tighter, and stepped forward. The water lapped against my shins, then my knees. Every inch I advanced, the faces swelled beneath me, teeth gnashing, eyes rolling white. Hands clawed upward but never broke the surface, as if bound to their prison. At last I reached the valve. My hands wrapped around the wheel, slick with slime. Behind me, the pipe screamed, metal buckling, bursting, the sound of 1,000 voices crying out in rage. The wheel resisted, rust locked tight. But I threw my weight into it, twisting, forcing it to turn. The second it moved, the basement reacted. The faces shrieked in silence, the water boiling with their agony. The massive pipe convulsed violently, spewing more limbs, torsos, fragments of people who had no business being inside metal. And then, the wheel snapped free. The sound that followed wasn't simply a groan. It was a scream. The entire building above seemed to shake as the pressure released. Water surged, flooding higher, but with it came something worse. Something that had been waiting inside the pipes. And it wasn't just human. The water surged higher, soaking my coat, dragging at my legs. The pipes around me groaned and split, seams bursting wide open. And then I saw it. It poured from the largest pipe like flesh given liquid form, an abomination of limbs, torsos, and faces fused together, all dripping, all half-drowned, as if the very plumbing had harvested people and bound them into one monstrous body. Its skin glistened like wet porcelain, cracked in places where veins of black water pulsed. Dozens of mouths opened at once, all speaking in that broken chorus. "Pierce, join us." The faces I had seen beneath the water now covered its body, shifting constantly, some screaming, others weeping, others whispering nonsense like echoes from forgotten dreams. Hands reached for me. Too many hands, fingers stretching unnaturally long, dragging across the surface of the flood. I stumbled back, slipping in the rising water. My flashlight beam caught the thing's eyes, or rather, where eyes should have been. They were drains. Black, circular, swirling with water that vanished into darkness. They stared at me as though sucking at my very soul. I raised my revolver and fired. Once. Twice. The bullets tore into the mass, but instead of blood, water exploded outward, the whole ceiling as quickly as they appeared. The laughter that followed was not human. Desperation clawed at me, but my gaze locked onto the valve panel again, still hissing, still open, still releasing pressure. And then I realized, the creature wasn't only in the water. It was the water. The pipes. The entire system. This store wasn't just a building, it was a prison. A reservoir. And someone, somewhere, had let it out. The thing lurched forward, crashing into the flood, sending waves rolling toward me. I forced myself up the stairs, half running, half crawling, but the water followed, surging higher, dragging the creature with it. Its voices filled the stairwell, names, screams, fragments of lives I didn't know. I burst through the hatch into the main store, slamming it shut behind me. But already the walls shook, pipes rattling violently, bursting in sprays of water. The shelves toppled, products scattered, and through the broken plumbing I saw hands, long, pale hands, pulling themselves free. I didn't have long. Spotting the breaker box behind the counter, I knew what I had to do. Electricity and water, sometimes the simplest solutions are the deadliest. I sprinted through the chaos, ducking as a pipe overhead burst, drenching me in freezing spray. The whispers were deafening now, calling my name, promising release, promising peace if I just stopped running. But I didn't stop. I reached the box, tore it open, and with a prayer to gods I don't believe in, I ripped the wires free and plunged them into the water flooding the store. The world erupted. Sparks screamed like fireworks, arcs of blue lightning dancing across the flood. The water convulsed, boiling, seething with steam and the stench of scorched flesh. The creature shrieked, thousands of voices crying out in perfect unison, so loud the glass windows shattered outward into the night. Faces split apart, melting into ripples, limbs thrashing violently before collapsing into nothing but black water. And then silence. The flood stilled. The pipes stopped rattling. The faces were gone. All that remained was the drowned smell of iron and something ancient finally dying. I stood in the wreckage, smoke rising around me, chest heaving. My revolver felt like a child's toy in my hand, utterly useless against what I had just seen. The breaker sparked one last time and went dark, leaving the store in shadow. I left without looking back. The night outside was cold and indifferent, the neon sign of the store flickering weakly as though nothing had happened. But I knew better. Whatever that thing was, it hadn't been born in that store. It had been trapped there, bound within its pipes, waiting for release. And if it had been bound once, then others like it existed. Monsters not buried in graves, but hidden in the veins of the world. As I walked into the night, drenched, burned, and exhausted, one thought burned in my mind. If the pipes carry water into every home, every building, every city, how long before the whispers spread again?